Hello and welcome to the dungeon. My name's Dan, and in today's video we've been playing a lot of Phoenix Point. So, for those of you who have never heard of Phoenix Point but have played the XCOM Enemy Unknown games and are thinking to yourself, this looks like XCOM, it's not XCOM. It's by a guy who originally made the XCOM games back when they were UFO Defense, Julian Gollop, but it's his new studio, Snapshot Games, and it's very similar to XCOM, but with a few differences. And if all of what I just said made no sense to you at all, let me take a further step back. You see, this is a turn-based, futuristic sci-fi game set in the near future, when Earth is under attack. Now, here, it's not aliens, at least not quite. We're actually being attacked by this primordial virus called the Pandora virus, and it mutates creatures into these weird monstrosities. And you are part of a society called the Phoenix Point, and it's your job to help protect the Earth from this kind of bad situations. So yes, very much like the whole XCOM project. Now, I am an absolute lover of turn-based tactics games. The XCOM Unknown and the second one, I absolutely adored and put in far too many hours in. I was the guy who wanted to play on classic difficulty, Iron Man mode, and keep going from the first mission to the last. And should I die or have my entire squad wiped out or suffer losses so I couldn't go any further, I would start the whole thing again. So, is Phoenix Point like that? Yeah, kinda. Oh, and before we go any further, let's talk about the whole Epic Store exclusivity. So I know a lot of people pre-ordered this game when it was going to be on Steam and GOG, and once the whole Epic came along, they were like, nope, and cancelled their pre-order. I can completely understand that kind of thing. I personally didn't get this game until much later. I did pre-order it, although I'm not normally one to do so, but it was quite cheap at the time, I think on the Epic sales. And to those of you who said they're not going to get it at all, please just wait for it to come on Steam. It is worth your time, and I'll go into reasons why later, and you'll probably get a better version of the game by then anyway. The whole Epic launcher wasn't most seamless of ways to launch a game I found, particularly since I had so many issues with cloud saves compared to disk saves, and I had to decide which one to use. And one time I picked the wrong one and was playing a new game, and I had missed like 2 hours worth of content I'd already gone through, so I had to redo a bunch of missions. Not fun. And yes, I don't think I will get any more exclusively Epic games, even though MechWarrior 5 does look pretty awesome, but hey, I can wait for that one. So, Phoenix Point, you control a bunch of squaddies and you're going on to missions, killing alien scum, or mutated crab scum, if you will. But there is a lot more to it than that. You see, the whole world now is a lot more fractured. The Pandora virus has come, for the most part, and decimated the entire landscape, society-wise. The landscape itself is pretty much still intact, but countries, nations, main religions all seem to have gone the way of a dinosaur, and there are now 3 main societies in place. You've got the New Jericho. Sorry, I couldn't resist going back to my wrestling love again. Anyway, New Jericho are basically your standard military-based people. They like to have a strong leader in charge, very militaristic, not too keen on mutations that other societies do, and they like their guns and being strong. That's New Jericho. Then you've got the Synedrian. These are cyborg commies, basically. They're kind of like the whole Star Trek Federation, but still on Earth. They're trying to get there. They don't believe in hierarchies, and they don't believe in property rights either, so that's them. And then finally, you've got the religious fanatics of the Disciples of Anu, who think that the best way to defeat the enemy is to learn from them, and they're all into hybridization. They've got their sermons, very religious, very kind of taking the alien into your body to become stronger. So 3 very different groups with very different ideas, And a lot of the game is kind of managing your place within these three groups. If you support one, then does that mean you're not supporting the other two? What happens when two of them go to war? Do you have to go in one you like the most, or what? And unlike, say, the newer XCOM games, for recruitment, you don't get like Phoenix Point soldiers, you recruit from one of these three different societies. So if you go to a Synedrian one, you'll get a futuristic Robocop looking guy, whilst if you go to a Disciples of Anu city, you'll get a lobster looking berserker. This is a really cool feature, and it plays into the whole political importance of trying to appease as many of the societies as possible and managing their expectations of you. Say, if you piss off one group long enough, they will stop giving you recruits, and then you have to rely on the other one or two. In terms of classes, when you begin the game, you have your standard heavy guy who likes big guns but doesn't move very fast, your sniper who, again, likes to snipe but doesn't move too fast, and your assault dude who moves much faster and carries a rifle. At first, I thought this was somewhat disappointing. Only three classes seem like a very bare bones type of doing things, but it gets better, much better. You see, as these other groups develop their own different classes for warfare, you gain access to them when you do recruitment, and you've got all kinds of weird and cool things. You've got berserkers, as I mentioned, who the more damage they take, the stronger and angrier they get. You've got priests. These guys are awesome because they can panic the enemy, and suddenly you've got a lot less enemy on your hands when they're all running away because they wet themselves. You've got flamethrower troops. You've got rocket powered troops. You've got guys who put turrets down and can heal you. So a big mixture of different troop types you can use, but you have to put the investment in first. You have to play the game for a while and then wait for these later down the road for them to become available. There's a lot of variety here in terms of abilities. You've got all the standard things like grenades, options to move without using a move point, option to get more will, and will is very important because will is generally what you spend to use these abilities, and should you run out, then your guy could run away maybe. You've got area of effect weaponry, so even if you personally can't see the enemy, if you know roughly where they are, you can send some rockets to give them a bad day. On the boots of the ground level, there is a lot of tactics. Oh, and vehicles. You can get these big armored transports to use as well. Now they do take the place of free soldiers, so you might be lacking in troops if you do decide to deploy one, but if you do, that is some sick firepower you've got on your side. And if you truly wanted a twist knife, take two. And it's just so cool being able to mix and match as the Phoenix Point. That is your thing. After all, you are bringing people together to kill some alien crab scum. Phoenix Point does things very differently to XCOM. First of all, you don't get a percentage, so often it's a bit of pot luck as to whether you think you'll hit the enemy or not. Generally speaking, the closer you are to them, the more likely it is to hit them. It's not like in XCOM where you get close and it's like 95% and you shoot and completely miss like a stormtrooper. This one, get close, pop them. The only thing to consider is some weapons actually become less effective at close range, so even if you do hit the enemy, you may not do any significant damage. So effective range is also something to consider. But my absolute favourite part of this game is the aiming system, where you can actually aim for particular body parts of the enemy. This is great. It means if you see an outline of an alien and you see maybe a leg or a gun, you can either try to shoot for the gun or the leg, and these things have different effects. So if you blow off a leg, that alien is now walking a lot slower than before. If you destroy their gun, you've destroyed their gun. The flip side is though, this all applies to your guys too. So if you've got a guy who loses both arms, well, he can't shoot for the rest of that mission. If your guy gets hit by a grenade and he's holding a first aid spray and that spray gets damaged, then you're shit out of first aid spray luck, aren't you? This, I think, adds a lot of tactical dynamism to the game, and suddenly it's not just a case of can I get close enough to hit the enemy, it's what part of the enemy should I try and hit. And as your guys level up, it almost becomes like an RPG since you have 3 stats that you can add points to. You've got strength, how much can they carry? You can literally put things in a guy's backpack and then get to it later in the mission so you can carry a bunch of other guns. Or speed, how fast can they move? Very important, particularly for the heavier guys. Or willpower. Willpower, as I mentioned, very important for abilities and for not running away. How you allocate these points is up to you. A word of advice: when you're using the heavy trooper, you definitely need to get in close. I can't count how many times my heavies have fucked up a shot, even when I'd say it's in mid-range, because all my heavies are so pleased with how big their cannon is, they've forgotten how to aim. So I would very much advise giving your guys multiple guns and other things to use. Also melee weapons, they can be quite effective too. Now, visually, it gets a bit ugh. This is running on medium settings for now, and I don't think this game is particularly optimized. I know it can play XCOM 2 very well on high, but for this one, it's a little ropey, let's just say that. When I destroy a wall, it kind of looks very cardboardy and just collapses to the ground. There doesn't seem to be a lot of weight in the structures and things you can blow up. Now, it is cool that all the different societies have their own architecture, so you know when you're looking at a new Jericho place. Very concrete, very pragmatic, lots of big blocks and organized lines. Compare that to, say, the Disciples of Anu, which is a lot more religious looking, more cathedrals and spires, compared to Snedrian, which is straight out of Blade Runner. It's a good variety in a map. Often in missions it will randomize these, but you do start to recognize the same old alleyways again and again sometimes, so don't expect too much from different layouts. Enemy variety as well is particularly good, so you can have a battle against any of the 3 different factions. You can go into one of their cities and try and take their aircraft, for example, or their research. Little cool things like that, but the main enemy, the Pandora virus, comes in a bizarre multitude of shapes. You've got the crab guys with the shields who like to throw grenades at you. You've got the really annoying fuckers who, as soon as they take damage, go invisible, so you lose track of where they are until they come back again. You've got mine crabs who jump on your face and control you. Very irritating. You've obviously got the bigger and nastier stuff. A lot of different things you need to keep track of, and different ways to destroy. So it is both exhilarating and scary when you encounter something new and you think to yourself, how can I take down this thing? Especially as some of the research means you actually have to get close to an enemy and try and zap it and stun it enough times until you can actually finish the mission with the enemy in tow and have it as a prisoner. Yes, very XCOM-y, and there are a lot of other similarities, like going up to a civilian so you can activate them and they can try to escape, surviving waves of enemies if you're ambushed, or plain just going into an area and killing all the alien scum. This game is far from perfect, however, and one of the bigger issues is the sheer RNG, and the random number generator is throughout the entire game experience. This includes when you're looking at the global map and you're going from place to place. You have no idea what the next mission would be, if you might be ambushed, or if it'll be a scavenger hunt, or even where the next Phoenix Point base will be, because bases are very important. It's the only place on the map where your guys can get healing, and if you have a mission on one side of a planet and you can't get to it in time, then too bad. But worst of the RNG-ness comes in the missions themselves. One particular bugbear of mine is when you're playing a scavenger mission and you have to protect these containers because the enemies really don't like these containers. If a container is on the other side of the map and that's where the enemy is and that's how things are, that enemy will destroy that container and there is literally nothing you could have done to prevent it. They're just too far away. However, the RNG can be a good thing as well, particularly with the enemy mutating, and I did notice some maybe cosmetic changes to the appearances, like this one slivery creature called a siren, bit like a snake, although later in the game she was more like a centipede with these little spiky things on the side of her body, kind of freaky, and she's really annoying as well. She controls people and makes them turn on your soldiers, which is always a pain. But I did notice a lot of the enemies getting tougher, not necessarily smarter, but more abilities they can use, if nothing else. In terms of enemy AI, for the most part it's quite solid. For example, if you have an area of the map which is on fire, most enemies tend to avoid the fire, as you'd expect. Sometimes though they can be a little stupid. I've seen some of the bigger gribbler creatures, whenever they want to fire their ranged weaponry at an area, they don't care who's in front of them, including their own troops. And that was quite a godsend during one mission when this big giant monster practically killed its own forces. So thanks for that. One thing I noticed about the music when I first started it is all the different things they have in the menus. I like the one which is kind of like a sci-fi horror movie score, where it's just some kind of low sound in the background with various keyboard notes going on, and occasionally you hear static radio. Very atmospheric. Other instances it gets a bit more synthy, and of course when the action really gets going they'll bring the drums out. When it comes to the voices, there is a limited pool, I will admit. On one playthrough, my 4 soldiers, 2 of them were Russian male voices and the other 2 were African female voices, so I think they need some more variety for those. And it is cool that your soldiers will react to getting hurt and injured. Not only will they cry and scream out, but if they're wounded or bleeding, then they're like, I'll try and do it, or I don't feel so good. But this is one issue I picked up in a previous video with Age of Wonder Planetfall, and the same thing applies here. As soon as an allied soldier gets shot or something like that, everyone else will lose some will points, which is to be expected, but they won't say anything. If one of your guys dies, none of your other characters seem to react to it, and I think that is a misstep. I think it's quite easy to include another audio line just saying, oh god, they killed Kenny, or something like that, for example. It doesn't really feel like you're using a team of specialized people. You're just using cool individuals, and then once you lose one, the others just get on with it, I guess, which is very professional but not very realistic. I may not have found it yet, but there's no memorial section in your bases either, and yes, you can get multiple bases. So as soon as a guy is dead, they're gone from the game. Okay, fair enough. Life is cheap after all. Another part of this game is exploration and going across the globe looking for new areas of interest. You go to a place, you do some searching, maybe you'll get some resources, maybe you'll find an encampment, maybe it'll be a mission. So lots of things to keep track of, and that's how you develop. You get resources, you find an old base, you put more rooms in the base, more places for your guys to hang out, more vehicle bays, you do more research to get more fancier technology you can use. You need to manufacture said technology. There are actually a lot of steps to getting better at this game, lots of different hoops to jump through, and you have to equip your soldiers all manually as well. So if you are using a grenade and you run out, you do have an option at the end of a mission to auto get some more, but say if you don't have the resources and down the line you get the resources, you have to remember to get a grenade back, and some of that does take time, a lot of time just waiting for things to happen. Now for me, the worst part of this game are the glitches, and there are a few and they're really annoying. Some of these are quite small, like you'll be looking around the map looking for a place to get cover, and let's say it's a tree, and normally there's an icon to say if it's half cover or full, and some of these won't show the icon, so it's like, is there cover there or not? I don't know, and it can be a bit of a hit and miss situation. Others can be much worse, so you're looking around the globe for new missions and new places to hang out, but it's not registering what you find, so it's just blank and you have to keep moving on. It also feels half-baked at times. As I said, it needs more voices, it needs a multiplayer mode would be fantastic, particularly with the 4 different factions, the aliens and the 3 different human ones, and I suppose the Phoenix Point itself. but there isn't one. I don't know if there would be, but if you do decide to make one in the future, Mr. Gollop, then that would be fantastic. As for performance, twice now the game has crashed on me. Actually no, it's not even crashed, it's frozen on the screen, which is worse because then I had to manually crash the game. And it's always during the enemy's turn. They'll have a turn or a reaction and then it'll just stop. I mean, the game's still running, it's as if it's waiting for the next action, but the next action will never ever come. So yes, that was rather annoying. Again, maybe that's the Epic launcher or it's an issue with the game, who knows, but it's a pain in the ass and it's losing a point because of it. But other things they need to do is, some of the objects are actually missing titles. You'll actually hover over it and it will say missing title key or something like that. So I'm guessing a lot of development of this game was quite rushed. It did miss a couple of release dates and it got pushed back till the end of the year, and maybe a few more months in the oven would have done it some good. Better optimized, more voices, not so many bugs please. There are 4 different difficulty modes in this one. I have used the second and the third one. The second to easiest, or the third hardest I'd say, is I think where the game is best at. It doesn't seem too daunting. You get 5 troops to start off with and you can just have a good time exploring and blowing alien bases up. The second hardest one, I saw a big difficulty curve. You have fewer guys, the enemy has a lot more troops, and if you run out of ammunition and that kind of thing, then your guy is kind of useless, particularly if there's weapons lying around but they're not trained on it. So definitely you have to think ahead for harder difficulties. There wasn't an automatic Iron Man mode in this one, which surprised me, but if you want to play it like that, I'm sure you can, and there is a lot of time to spend in this game as well if you want to explore everything, get all the good tech, and have happy relations with everyone. Now, I've played several playthroughs, but none of them until the end. I keep on getting so far, learning more about the game, and then going back to try a better run. And I really am liking what I'm playing so far. It's a lot of tactical fun, it's right up my alley, and I just love blowing alien scum to bits. I can't imagine any more of the game would change my opinion on this. I do definitely want to try and play until the end as much as possible, and I'm sure I will come back to it. For me, Phoenix Point gets 3.5.
That was glorious!
Out of 5. Anyway, that's all for me. Thank you very much for watching this video. Next time, to be honest with you, is the pretty much end of the year, and I'm all video game out. I will do 2 more videos though, which is the top 10 games of 2019, and of course the top worst games of 2019. And if you want to see more of my content in the future, then please give me a subscribe, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.
Can I hit anything?